Welcome back to the Jungle Fever podcast. It is January 26th.
Oh, there
We
we go. We
are,
got you. The intro
oh,
there, you were
did we
mudded.
cut in and out? The,
Yeah.
the computer has been a little wonky today. We're gonna see. Hopefully it all comes out right, but it's a little off. Hopefully we will get rolling as normal. It is January 26th. We have a Super Bowl. It is a rematch of Super Bowl 49. It is the Patriots and the Seahawks. We all know how that one ended. If this Super Bowl is anything as dramatic as the last one, that would be pretty cool from a
Yeah.
neutral perspective. AFC Championship, NFC Championship were two very different games, two very interesting games, both very close. Patriots obviously come out on top, and the Seahawks do as well. Both teams made some big defensive plays late. Does that ring a bell? We do have some big news in the AFC North. I think that's where we'll start today's episode off with. Obviously, not a ton of Bengals stuff to recap over the last couple of days. Dan Pitcher is back. I guess that's really the only
Seemingly.
thing. There were a
Yeah.
couple. He did have that interview came out really as we were recording last week, where he was taking that interview in Tampa Bay. They opted to go a different direction. So Pitch is back, which is good news for the Bengals, I think.
Yeah, no, absolutely. He's somebody who has a lot of ambitions. He's somebody who wants to be a head coach. I don't think it's a secret within the organization, the path that he wants to be on. And listen, when you have done what he's done, but haven't really gotten the credit for it, I don't think, it's only natural to kind of look elsewhere. I completely understand it because you think about when he came in, right? With Burrow, Chase, and Higgins. Um, and he completely reinvented a lot of what they did. And then that same season, his first year as OC, Jamar is a Triple Crown winner. Joe Burrow is an MVP. If the record was better, they were scoring at will. We were doing things with Jamar we had never done before. He just will never get the credit because the guys on the field are incredible. And a lot of people will just point to that and say, well, the talent's there. I think Dan Pitcher is absolutely good enough to win without the talent. And I think he wants to kind of go prove that in a play caller role. I don't believe, obviously, Zach Taylor, there's been some talk about him giving up play caller duty. That is not going to
It's
happen.
not gonna happen.
So him wanting to go to a spot where he can prove it and he can be a play caller and he can kind of build it himself and kind of get out of the shadow of Burrow a little bit. It's only natural, but you got to enjoy him while he's here because I think he's an incredible leader as well. And I think he's very valued within the organization. So one more year with him, it seems like probably is going to be the case, but. I think that's just an overall win for the Bengals. The theme of this offseason seems to be continuity with this team.
Yeah. Again, I'm very glad Dan Pitcher is back. I think he's a very good offensive mind. Um, I don't know how much longer he'll be with this organization,
Right.
to be honest, simply because I think he's too good. I
Mhm.
think whether it's this next cycle coming up next year, we saw he already had interest from some other teams. It feels like a ticking clock for him to move up. Like it's a matter of when, not if.
Mhm.
We will see. I am glad he's back though. I think it's good news for the Bengals. I think Joe Burrow will be happy. I think everybody in that offense will be happy. Like you said, continuity. That's big for this team. Let's look around the rest of this division. We have some hires to discuss. Obviously, we will start. Let's start with Baltimore because I think this is the easiest one to break
Yep.
down. Jesse Minter is the new head coach in Baltimore. He is the former Chargers defensive coordinator, had a stop at the University of Michigan where he did some great things, was in Baltimore organization back in the early 2020s.
He's a
This kind
Cincinnati
of
guy.
felt, yes, he is a Cincinnati guy. Very interesting there. Um, Interesting. I think this is the right dynamic for Baltimore. I think Jesse Mitchell's a great defensive mind. Um, I think he was one of the better, if not the best, coordinator that was on the market. He obviously was very highly coveted by almost every opening, and now I believe how many are still open? I don't believe the
How many
Falcons. Obviously, we're going
jobs
to talk about
around
the
the league?
Browns. The Falcons haven't
Um,
hired yet. Tennessee, or no, they hired Sala.
four, I believe. Tennessee, Las Vegas, Arizona,
I
Cleveland.
thought did Tennessee hire Sala, or was that
Oh, yes, that's right. That's right. So is it
Vegas is
three?
open though?
So
The
it's Vegas,
Vegas,
Vegas, Arizona, and Cleveland.
Arizona. Yeah, so it is four. We were right on the number. We were off on the teams. So again, I like this hire from a neutral perspective. I think he'll do a good job there. I think he's a good leader. Obviously a very apt defensive mind, which Baltimore, especially early this season, their biggest struggle was on the defensive side of the ball. However, a lot of the issues for Baltimore, I think, really are mental at this point, right? You've kind of hit this plateau almost where you have all of this great talent and they haven't found a way to maximize it over the last, really, particularly the last two seasons. Obviously, they had that great season back in 2023 where they went, was it 15-2 in the regular season? They came up short in the AFC Championship game, and you know, they haven't found a way to get back there since. Right. And now I think it's about for a new head coach of Baltimore, which is, again, this is a new thing. John Harbaugh was there for a very long time. We're going to discuss this a little bit deeper with Pittsburgh. But, you had a coach in John Harbaugh who obviously very quickly found a new job out in New York, right? That now it's a new regime. How does he change? Will there be new coordinator hires? Does Zach Orr stick around? Did obviously Todd Monken, like, will they go in different directions? It'll be very interesting to see how Jesse Minter kind of fills out that coaching staff. Because again, the talent's still there for Baltimore. It's not going to go away, especially with number 8, right? The talent's not going to go anywhere. So I'm interested to hear what you have to think about this one, Ayden.
Yeah, I good organizations make good decisions. Good owners, good general manager. The Baltimore Ravens are an extremely well run organization, and it doesn't shock me that they made a good hire. I think that Jesse Minter was one of the better options out there. I think he has had a very quick rise recently. You mentioned his time at Michigan, and then he followed Jim over to LA and was there very quickly and was very successful there. And I think not a lot is going to change in Baltimore. I'll be interested to see. I think the offensive coordinator is an important hire. I know that Lamar is a big fan of Cliff Kingsbury. I think that would be extremely interesting in Baltimore, just given off of what he did with Jaden Daniels, his history with Kyler Murray, in the success that they've had in those stops. As a Bengals fan, I'd be slightly nervous about a hire like that. As a neutral, I think that it's obviously just a really good decision. From a schematic perspective on defense, I think it makes a lot of sense for Baltimore because Jesse Minter and Mike Macdonald have a lot of similarities. Macdonald, obviously, the previous defensive coordinator for the Ravens, who's now in the Super Bowl with the
Big
Seattle
hire.
Seahawks, who's the best defense in the league. But it's interesting because Zach Orr, I'm going to go full football nerd. Zach Orr ran middle of the field closed at a higher rate than any other defensive coordinator in the NFL. The two individuals who were having the middle of the field open the most were Mike McDonald and Jesse Minter. So the Ravens are going to go back to that kind of scheme. And then you think about what Jesse Minter did with a guy like Derwin James, who is a freak athlete, rangy safety who can play anywhere. And he put him anywhere, and he put him in so many good, advantageous positions for the Chargers. And you think about that and how that will translate to a guy like Kyle Hamilton. You can only imagine what he's thinking about doing with 14 on that side of the ball. So I think this is an A plus kind of hire for Baltimore. I think they knocked it out of the park. Unfortunately, obviously as a Bengals fan, but again, just good organizations make good decisions.
Yeah, I audibly said a cuss word when I saw that come across the
Mhm.
wire. I like it a lot, like you do, from a neutral perspective. I think it's a very good hire. I think Baltimore did a good job here. They got to fill out the staff the right way. Like you said,
Sure.
Kingsbury would be very interesting. We'll see if they stick with Orr at DC. We'll see what they do, but I think it's a great start for Baltimore now. They got a big offseason to attack, some big decisions to make, but for now, I think it's a good start for Baltimore. I'm not sure if we could say the same about the Pittsburgh Steelers. Um, Mike McCarthy is
Big
the
Mike.
fourth, yeah, the fourth head coach since the moon landing. You know how crazy that is? The fourth head coach. The moon landing
Incredible.
was in 1969. It was Chuck Noll, it was Bill Cowher, it was Mike Tomlin, and now the oldest Steeler head
Mhm.
coach, the first game that he coaches, he will become the oldest head coach in Steeler history, Mike McCarthy. So I have a few thoughts, as I'm sure you do, and we'll get to you in a second. This feels like Art Rooney just saw that Mike McCarthy grew up in Pittsburgh and was like, yeah, that'll work. Like, it's such an establishment hire, right? And everybody in the planet is saying the same thing, right? It is a, Mike Tomlin coined this phrase, the standard is the standard. It's the standard. This is the standard here. Pittsburgh had a clear as day opportunity to rewrite their standards, right? Because over the last couple years, right, things had gone the wrong way. Really post Big Ben, things have kind of gone the wrong way, right? It was just get to 9-8, get to 10-7. Sure, we'll make the playoffs, but we were not going to win the Super Bowl, right? And they were never even close. They haven't been close in a long time. And Mike Tomlin leaves. He leaves with respect. He leaves with, I think a lot of people in that organization, I think, he will probably be in their Ring of Honor or whatever their equivalent is someday, right? And you have a chance to go young again, right? Think about all the hires that they've made in the past. Young, right? Well, really all two major ones. Both Cowher and Tomlin were in their 30s when they got hired. Or I think Cowher was in his 40s. But you get the point. They went young. Mike McDaniel's like 65. Like, this is
Mike
not
McCarthy.
like, well, sorry, Mike McDaniel's in LA now. But Mike McCarthy is 65 years old. Like, he is not exactly the new kid on the block, right? He had a very interesting tenure in Dallas. He had a successful tenure in Green Bay with a championship, but a lot people can argue that there should have been more championships during that tenure. And you went back to the status quo. You went
You know,
back to old reliable.
you know the meme where it's like Unk didn't do anything but step back, the before,
Toothpick
the
changes
after.
everything.
Yeah, yeah. That's how I feel about this hire. It's
They
like,
hired offensive Tomlin.
yep. I mean, you nailed it though. This was an opportunity for Pittsburgh to sit there and just hit the refresh button, right? And I think they desperately need it. They've been stuck in the mud for what feels like at this point like 10 years. Like they've been kind of just going around and
I
around
mean,
song and dance for
so you think about the last Pittsburgh Steel. You go back through the last what decade? The Pittsburgh Steelers playoff wins look like this: a 2018 win against the mighty Matt Moore and the Miami Dolphins at home. Then they proceeded to lose at home the next week to the Jacksonville Jaguars. Then they needed a Cincinnati collapse to
Mhm.
win that game in 2016, right? That is pretty much all the recent playoff success,
Right.
right? You got to
So
go back. I think then when you go back before that, then you get some of those near misses. They went to the AFC Championship a couple times. That was back when Big Ben was really doing big things for Pittsburgh, right?
right.
They they haven't had sustained success. Look, and Steeler fans are going to say, "Oh, well, they Mike Tomlin never went." That's not success. Get that out of my face. Look at what these two franchises in the Super Bowl have done. Perfect example right here. You have a rematch of a Super Bowl that happened just a little over a decade ago, right? 11 years ago with Super Bowl 49. The Patriots and Seahawks are completely different than they were 11 years ago, as 31 other franchises in the NFL are. What's the one franchise that hasn't changed? The Pittsburgh Steelers. Nothing has changed. Yeah, somewhere in that 8-8 to 10-6 back before we expanded games, and now it's 9-8 to 10-7. They're going to be in there somewhere, right? They're maybe even an 8-1 because they did that once, right? Like, there's
Yeah.
just no set. And my big thing with this team is and I have this issue with Cincinnati at times, and that's why I kind of see it from that perspective. There's no sense of urgency in that organization. Absolutely none.
No.
They
And it's got to get I think they have to recognize it's got to get ugly before it gets good. You know what I mean? And I just don't think
you
they
got
want
to
it to
blow
get
it up.
ugly ever. Like they're in the same position. They're constantly just stuck.
Well,
Um,
look at New England, right? Big bad of the AFC for so many years with Tom Brady, right? Eventually, In 2020, Brady loses to Tennessee. Brady goes to Tampa Bay, right? New England realizes that, okay, you have a decent first year, right? They go to the playoffs with Mac Jones, and then it kind of falls apart, right? And then Belichick leaves, right? And
They had two straight
they,
seasons of 3-14.
yeah, bad. They were bad for a couple years, really bad. Even last year with Drake May, they were bad. Don't look up who they beat week one, but they were really bad, right? And, I think that when you look at, they saw that Jared Mayo wasn't, an answer. They cut ties quickly, right? They saw an opportunity in Mike Vrabel.
Well, I think it's more that second part of the Titans were dumb enough to get rid of Vrabel.
Brooker. Um, and I think that when you see that, and more about like you think about the Steelers and the Patriots were one of the rivalries of the late 2010s, right? So many great games. Jesse James, jump scare. Some of the other like so many big moments between those two in late season, regular season, and in the playoffs, right? Brady versus Big Ben. It happened so many times. It was a big deal, right? And you think about where the organizations are now. Patriots are, it's a new regime, it's a new quarterback, it's a new everything, right? What's changed in Pittsburgh besides the names on the back of the jersey?
Not a whole
Not a
lot.
lot.
Yeah.
Omar
And
Khan's still there.
to that point, like change and teams being more aggressive. And it depends on your situation, obviously. But Seahawks general manager John Schneider,
Very good.
he's the first GM in NFL history to reach multiple Super Bowls with the same organization while having a completely new head coach and no player from the previous Super Bowl team. So that he literally tore the whole thing down to the studs. Like there was nothing left of that previous
And
team, the Legion of Boom, and it's right back.
Seattle's a great example too because they were, they had that Super Bowl and then they come up short in that the next Super Bowl and then they were that team of near misses in the playoffs, right? Russ comes up short and then they blew it up, right? They traded Russ. They got all those first round picks. And by the way, take a look at what those first round picks are producing now. Devin Witherspoon, key plays in that game, right? Jackson Smith and Jigba, my goodness, what a football player he is, right?
Mhm.
They are making the most of what was a few years ago a bad situation. And now here they are, right? They're probably going to be 5+ point favorites in the Super Bowl. This is at John Schneider, by the way. I mean, he'll win Executive of the Year this year. He's done an
Incredible.
unbelievable job.
Yeah, and
Just a
that's my biggest pet peeve at times with the Bengals, right? Is so they're so against moving away from the status quo. They're so against doing things outside of their comfort zone. And then you look around the league
you
and you
have to
look at these
like pull
teams being
fingernails to get it
aggressive
to
and
happen.
trying new things and sure, there's a chance, there's always a chance that it blows up in your face. There absolutely. I'm not going to say that there's not. But at the end of the day, these teams that try it and do it, it works out pretty well for them.
Going
Seattle,
and
by the
getting
way,
Sam Darnold
has
was a massive risk.
yeah. I mean, Seattle has top five cap space this upcoming offseason, $77 million in cap room. Like, they're in a great position. They have been incredibly smart with the moves that they made. Like you mentioned, they made some gambles. Sam Darnold was a roll of the dice, and it worked, given your offensive coordinator and your belief in him. So part of me just wishes at times the Bengals would take more risks, but they're not in the business of doing that. So,
No, and I mean, look, I think the one off season they did take risks. Look what happened,
right.
right? It's
They're
it
stalled.
feels like you have to try, and they did in 2021 to their credit, and look what happened,
They had
right?
a great.
They nailed free agency. They had some big plays. Those players all stepped up, and they went to the freaking Super Bowl. So, you know, and again, I'm not like we're gonna trust me. This has been not a super Bengals focused episode so far. We're gonna get to the Bengals. We got some stuff to talk about, but I think that when the Bengals are watching the Super Bowl from home, right? When, we'll watch Jamar in the Pro Bowl this coming week, and then we'll, watch the Super Bowl in 2 weeks, right? There's a lot of lessons that you can take from both of these organizations. So it's up to the Bengals to heed those lessons. So we'll see how they do it. I don't know if they'll play either of these teams next year. I think off the top of my head, I'm not sure if they will.
You're
I
saying
think
Seattle and
Yeah,
And New
New
England,
England.
no, they will
I
not.
was I don't think they will. I think they have the NFC South question
Correct.
mark next year, which
Yeah.
is in theory a good thing. Um, and
Well,
then
knowing them, yeah.
yeah, we'll see. We'll see if the division winner's like 8 and 9 again. Um, and finally, let's go to Berea, Ohio, to check in on the Cleveland Browns.
The Browns are the
Um,
Browns.
it's probably easier here to list the people who have withdrawn themselves from consideration for this job.
Mhm.
Just today, Grant Udinski, the Jaguars offensive coordinator, who's been a very hot name in this cycle. There's 5 teams, by the way. We didn't mention Buffalo. Buffalo is still looking for a new head coach. We forgot
Yes,
about them.
that's right.
But it looks like Buffalo might be zeroing in on Grant Udinski, so keep an eye on that. Mike McDaniel, he withdrew himself from consideration. Jesse Minter withdrew himself from consideration. I don't know if Dan Pitcher ever withdrew himself. I don't know if Browns are just like, we're good, which
Doesn't seem
or
like it.
loss, I suppose. I don't know. Um, it does appear, and I would, especially now that the Rams have been eliminated, I would not be surprised if the Browns' next head coach is Nate Scheelhaase, who is he's the
I was
Rams
Shieldhouse.
passing. Yes, that now I'm gonna butcher that last name umpteen times.
Yeah.
Um, he is the passing game coordinator for the Rams. Did some really good work with Matt Stafford over the last couple of seasons. Um, Former college quarterback. Um, Again, I don't. As to be fully honest, I don't know a ton about Nate Scheelhaase. Sure, I suppose. I think it's either at this point. I think you're down to two. I think it's either him or you promote Jim Schwartz, which
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think it would be as disastrous as some Browns fans are saying, but like it's not great if it's Jim
No.
Schwartz.
They're putting all
And
their
I
eggs
think
in their basket. And it's like, again, the Browns are kind of in a spot where they have to kind of hit a reset themselves, I think. They're trying to desperately get out of this Watson era and kind of usher in a new era of Browns football, whatever that looks like. And I Browns fans will spin it however they want to, but I think the general sense around the league is that this is just not a desirable job at all.
I
And
think it's the least desirable job in
yeah,
of these open.
we've talked about that a lot, and there's a lot of reasons that go into that. But I just there's not a lot going on. You're really not in a position to win next year at all. So you
Who's
need
your
somebody
quarterback?
with grace and patience. And this Cleveland feels spent on a lot of that stuff. So we'll just see. I don't know. The, the Shieldhouse thing is interesting. He's young and he's somebody who the Rams glow about, and he's somebody who could maybe kind of reset their timeline a little bit. And the thing is, he's going to lose a lot starting out. It's just the nature of that roster and where they're at as a franchise. So patience is going to be the big thing.
And
I
look,
still think
you have
Wheelhouse
two
would be a
first
good
round.
hire. I think it'd be a good hire if they make it. Um, but it's Cleveland. At the end of the day, the Browns are the
Yeah.
Browns.
You've got two first round picks, but like you just don't, like you said, you just don't have a lot of resources to work with. You've still got the albatross of a contract for number four, right? You've got a quarterback room with no real solutions and like 5 contracts. You've got
You have
again
no playmakers.
a
Yeah.
defense that is pretty solid, maybe the best defensive player in football at your disposal, but you don't really have much else besides that, especially on the offensive side. So it's just not a like I can understand why some people would be hesitant to take that job right now. I don't think it's particularly desirable. Like
Yeah, because you think about a guy like Mike McDaniel, right? And how his tenure in Miami ended. And then he's going for a second opportunity in Cleveland, right? And you think about how the NFL works and
he was
job
in that
cycles.
he was has some ties to Cleveland, by the way, was on that
Right,
staff
right.
in the
But
past.
but you think about how those cycles work. You typically don't get a third opportunity as a head coach, right? And so you sit there and you go, I can't win right away with what's in front of me. And I understand that it's going to take a while to turn this ship around. And I can't be there. I can't be shrapnel for when things don't work out. And so he takes an offensive coordinator job with the Chargers, which I think he will be wildly successful in. And then he can kind of pick and choose his next landing spot as a head coach if it ends up working out that way. So from his perspective, it
Absolutely.
makes a lot of sense. And you just think about guys like that, and it makes sense why you'd probably turn down a Cleveland job.
Yeah, I in full agreement. So yeah, I don't know. We'll see what they do. I think they're interviewing Shieldhaas today. They flew out to LA now that the Rams have been eliminated. Have a feeling that by like the end of the day tomorrow, he's the head coach. I don't think that this is going to be a long thing now that he's actually available to interview. So we'll see, but I would imagine that comes out. We can talk about it a little bit more next week. So yeah, that's enough about the other three nonsense teams in this AFC North. Let's talk about the good guys. The Bengals, again, the longest tenured head coach. Actually, the we talked about this last week. The second longest tenured head coach in the AFC is Zach Taylor now.
Incredible. And
So it is only behind Andy Reid, and who knows how much longer he has left, purely because of age, not even because of success or not success. So, um, yeah, what a just like we all drew it up, right? So, no real excuses for Mr. Taylor next
there,
year.
that I was just thinking that there are
No
no
excuses.
excuses next year.
You've got three new head coaches. There is zero reason why this team shouldn't, at the very least, be right up there at the top, right? You've got, I think, and I do think that and I said this last year, so I'll probably look like an idiot when this comes up next year. I think there's just a 0% chance that if it goes wrong next year, he stays. I just can't, barring like,
Your
I don't
faith,
know. They'll find some
your faith in the
excuse.
organization is always just hilarious to
But
me.
if they have like if they win 6 games again, I don't know how. Like I would completely be tapped out. There'd be no reason for me to watch football games anymore.
In
So
a vacuum, I agree with you, but we're not
yeah,
in a vacuum.
but
We root for the
well,
Cincinnati
the
Bengals.
Bengals could, I guess, think about maybe making some external free agents,
They're
bringing
gonna
them
have to
on.
find a new safety.
They are going to have to find a
You
new
see Geno
safety.
Stone's tweet? Good riddance.
Me and you both, pal.
Yeah. All right, bro.
Deuces, twin. See you
Yeah.
later. Sayonara.
A
Um,
farewell tweet from freaking Geno Stone, dude. Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
So, look, I think let's start with the defense side of the ball. Let's start at safety. That's where we're going to take these last few minutes of this is kind of look at some very early external free agent targets. Obviously, the asterisk to all this is that all these guys could just re-sign tomorrow, right? All these teams have these exclusive windows now. No, Dalton Risner still hasn't been signed. No, I don't know why. Don't bother. That's
Deadlines get deals done, Ethan. The deal will be
Yep.
done closer to March.
Yeah. So, we'll start at safety though, and I think there's a very, very obvious fit here. It is a guy with Cincinnati ties, grew up in Cincinnati, is a former Kansas City Chief, and his name is Brian Cook. Very good player. Has been a stalwart Super Bowl champion. Oh my goodness. Do you know what just happened? Shador Sanders just got named a Pro Bowl alternate.
No way. No way. Dude, who cares about the Pro Bowl? Literally, who cares? The only reason that the Pro Bowl is still around is because of contract incentives. It's a popularity contest. It
That's
doesn't mean
unbelievable.
anything anymore. If somebody brings up, oh, he's a Pro Bowler in an argument for a player, I just know that they don't know football. It's all pros. That's all I care about. Pro Bowl is who cares? Just go play some flag football, I guess.
Chris
That's
up.
a disgrace. It's
Hey, he's the
always been a
future.
disgrace.
He's the future.
Yeah.
Just keep re-sign him. $1 million, $300 million guaranteed. Make it happen. So yeah, back to Brian Cook, who I think is probably he will be a coveted player, I think. We'll see if Kansas City wants to bring him back, but I think the Bengals should be all over this. If you go look at his Twitter header and you can figure out that it's the city of Cincinnati with Paul Brown Stadium, yeah, it's Paul Brown Stadium, right in the background. Not a hard thing to figure out that I don't think the sales pitch would be particularly difficult. You just have to figure out the money, which, as we know, is difficult.
But I don't
So,
think he'll be overly expensive. He's 26 years old as well, which is the Bengals and their age of players. He
mhm.
isn't somebody who's made a ton of splash plays. I believe he has 3 interceptions in the last 4 seasons total. But again, we talk about a guy like Jordan Battle, who is a little bit more high and low. At times, he is kind of your splash guy. So if you compare him with somebody who's a little bit more steady, and I think that's a guy like Brian Cook, I think it makes a lot of sense. I think Cam Curl makes a lot of sense as well from LA. He's going to be a free agent. I don't necessarily know if LA is going to let him go, but he's the same age as Cook. And then I think he brings a little bit more of a higher ceiling at that
Yeah.
position. He's going to be probably a little bit more expensive.
Yeah, I think the last name that I'll throw into this mix is Nick Cross from Indianapolis. Another guy, kind of a similar player to Curl. Because what I think the kind of player that you want, because I think you could tentatively pencil in Jordan Battle as your strong safety starter in 2026. I think you want that kind of center fielder, right? Because Jordan Battle doesn't have that range. Jordan Battle is going to be a bit more down in the box if he can actually make tackles, be that tackler down on the inside. I think that that's more of what the Bengals are looking for is that free safety type guy that can play rangy over the top in like a cover one, play that top full shell type of player. So I think Nick Cross kind of fits that bill. I think that would the way that we talked about it would kind of be my order of guys like Cook, Curl, and then Cross. So let's go to linebacker here because I think the Bengals should absolutely be going after a free agent linebacker. Um, and I think another easy one here is another Kansas City Chief. I think it's my first name on the board. I think it's Leo Chenal, a guy who the Chiefs drafted in what, like the fourth round. And he is just, you want to talk about splash plays, right? Every week, TFL's big plays, steps up, right? I think that this is a guy that the Bengals should be all over as that off ball guy, right? And then I mean, look, I still think there's a good player, Demetrius Knight. The biggest issue with Demetrius Knight is that he was thrown out there on the island with no real guidance, right? Not that I just think you gotta, and this is less about Chanel, more about the type of player they need to find out there. You need a guy that can provide some experience at calling a defense. You can't have Barrett Carter wear the green dot next year. All respect to Barrett Carter. You can't have that happen.
I agree. I agree. There's a lot of good veteran options when you look around.
Yeah.
Some of them a little older than others. Bobby Wagner is going to be a free agent.
If they sign Bobby Wagner, I'm done. Like, can you imagine Bobby Wagner rocking up right next to what's his name? Right next to Demetrius Knight? Like it's just not gonna go well. Oh no. Did we lose Ayden? Was it me? Not like this. Oh, I think we lost Ayden. Oh no. No. Oh no. We lost the co-host. I can wrap this up solo, low key. We'll do these last 5 minutes. Just me. I know. Ugly face and all. I like a couple other linebackers on this list that I like. I really like Devin Lloyd out of Jacksonville, but I think he will be very highly coveted. I think Quay Walker, if he can get his head out of his you know what, is a very good player. If you can tell, I'm kind of looking for those young second contract players. I want guys that are hungry, right? Quincy Williams is a guy that I think could bring in some of that experience. Was one of the leading tacklers in the NFL this year, so I could look at him as well. A couple other positions I want to look at. We will start at edge defender because I do think the Bengals will be potentially in the market for this with Trey Hendrickson probably more likely than not moving on. Um, they could very well bring Joseph Osai back. I don't think that that's a out of the realm possibility. So keep an eye on that. But if they don't bring him back, there are a couple guys I would look at. In terms of guys that right now don't have extensions, Boye Mafe, I would look at from Seattle, who's about to play in a Super Bowl. I would potentially give a look at him. There were a couple others. I'm trying to scroll down this list of impending free agents. Kingsley Enagbare is a guy I might potentially look to bring in. And then Kwity Paye as well. Kwity Paye is kind of interesting because he was on this kind of a similar deal to what Osai was on, that 1 year kind of prove it deal in Indy. So we'll see how that all ends up shaking out. We'll do one more position here and then we'll wrap this one up because unfortunately Ayden's internet crashed. So it appears he is probably done for the day. Low key, do the Bengals look at a receiver? This is the interesting thing. Do they bring in an outside receiver as opposed to maybe looking for the draft? I do think the Bengals, whether it is via the draft or free agency, are going to bring in another body for that room, right? You've got T, you've got Jamar. They're still kind of looking for that wide receiver three. They thought they had it with Jermaine Burton, obviously didn't materialize. Who could they look for in the external free agent market for that? It's an interesting question. There are a few guys out here that are going to be very, very highly coveted, I think. I'm not going to say the Bengals are going to get this guy, but I think Alec Pierce will be very highly coveted. Um, Looking at this market, I'm not sure if there's any guys here that the Bengals are going to try to quote unquote break the bank for. I feel like they would probably trust their luck in the draft, which they've had a pretty good before Burton. They've had a pretty good track record with receivers. So I think they'll go draft here for this. But if they see value and maybe trying to Rashid Shaheed is an unrestricted free agent. Do you try and throw some money at him? You see what he's been doing in Seattle. Do you look at like any of these other guys that are just kind of hanging out on the open market, try and do that? Hey, George Pickens could be a free agent this offseason. Do you try? Probably not, but it would be funny. He's going to make a lot of money this offseason, isn't he? Boy, did he make a lot of money in Dallas this year. Be interesting to see how that all shakes out for the boys in Arlington. Yes, they're in Arlington, not Dallas. But that'll just about wrap things up. We lost Ayden. We lost the co-host. The internet died. We'll probably still roll with this. There's still a good conversation. We got some more stuff to talk about. We might go to bi-weekly here over the next couple weeks because the offseason doesn't really have much for us until we get to the combine and the draft. We're going to start profiling players here pretty soon. I will tell you that much. I've already kind of very liminally started with some of the obvious Bengals guys like your Downses and your Woods and your Baines and all that. But we will see. We will do a lot of conversating over the next couple weeks about the draft and the combine and free agency because that's where we're at. We are through the season. We're in the off season. So we will close this one out for now. And we will see y'all next week for Ayden, who we lost to my friend Ayden Crowley. Rest now, brother. We have the watch, and I'll see you in Valhalla. But that'll do it next for this week's episode of the Jungle Fever podcast. We'll see if we'll be back next week, or maybe we'll do it right after the Super Bowl. We will see you then. Until next time, saying so long. This has been the Jungle Fever podcast.